Welcome to Everything Teams Phone Live.
How many times did you record that?
That was one time in my cell phone audio.
It was one time, but I did go back at every show and try to find the best one, and I should have just rinsed it beforehand.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, there you go, guys. That's the new intro. It's always embarrassing. It is always embarrassing.
That one was not too bad. You should own that. That's good.
That whole echoey like I think it's corny because it is one of those corny things that you do. Like in some videos, have you seen this? Like some YouTuber guys again, like have like this whole like their intro. It's like their intro, like it's their thing. It's like my mic just went out. As corny and cheesy as it may be, they have this little thing. It's like memorable. So that's what it's like, to be memorable. But boy, it's memorable for the wrong reasons.
Well. As we welcome our good friends Adam and Josh to the show, I have to remind you, Rick, and I think Adam and Josh remember this. You put an infamous acoustic guitar song to Teams on LinkedIn.
Yep.
If that's not embarrassing, I mean, this intro to me is like really good.
Yeah.
You know,
I would give you that, Brandon.
I think you're right. I completely forgot about it. Thanks for bringing it up. It's Bailey actually dug that up one time for a show, and she actually played it at the end of the show.
I have it in my back pocket.
Those are the pros and cons to having a producer, right? Like you never know what's going to happen. So anyway,
Adam, therapy lessons to like forget about it, gone out the window. All right.
Exactly.
Actually, I'm looking over in the assets side of our showroom, and I see the song.
It's there.
we can always bring it on stage if we want to. Okay, back to the show.
You guys. I do have the guitar handy though. Actually, it's a new guitar, so it's pretty exciting. But anyway, Bailey, we got Adam and Josh. Super excited to talk about Comms vNext. You guys are some OG guests from Everything Teams Phone Live. What are we, episode 84, Bailey? 83, 84, something like that. So we're excited to have you guys on the show again, because you guys have early on, like I said, you guys both were like massive sort of influencers in the Everything Teams Phone sort of startup phase. Yeah, exactly. So we appreciate you being here again. And Bailey is our producer now, guys, and she puts all the stuff together for us really nicely. And then she's got some house cleaning for us before we kick things off. So Bailey, I'll turn it over to you.
I do. Before we get started, season 2 of Everything Teams Phone Live is sponsored by Momentum, where we help businesses thrive with Microsoft Teams. Back to you guys, episode 84.
All right. Thank you, Bailey. Okay. All right, guys. And then there were 4. It's just us, guys. We're back. You guys are back with another show. Comms vNext. It just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. For those that are listening that don't know what Comms vNext is, can you give us kind of what is it? Who's it for? What's it about? And then we'll get into the emotional sort of side of it and what it actually means for some people that go to the show. Brandon and I have good stories about that, but why don't you guys give us the rundown of the show?
Sure, I'll jump in, and then Josh, I'll let you color commentary, and then you could take on the emotional part, because I don't do that.
I was gonna say, I don't even know where to go with the emotional part of it, but okay, yeah.
You can be thinking about that as I get through the easy part here.
I think we do have some like cheesy inspirational music Bailey can put on in the background when we get to that, so it sounds
nice. That's awesome. That's great.
That's gonna be
exactly. Oh, I feel bad for her having to herd those 2 cats of you guys. And so, but Comms vNext, ultimately it's a community-based event that's just driven out of Josh, Jonathan, Pat, and I's mindset of how do we bring people together and really bring people around this concept. It originally started, this is our 7th event in 8 years. So this is going to be, it's kind of crazy to think about that. But when we first sat down and started talking about this way back in 2017, the whole idea was really around community, around unified communications. We can call it whatever we want: intelligent communications, converged communications, choose your acronym of choice these days. But it was back then, it was unified communications, and it was really, how do we bring people together around that? For us, as the four MVPs, obviously it was around that Microsoft product suite of, at the time, Skype for Business and Teams was just getting launched and everything like that. And so now we've just kind of seen this metamorphosis of technology to go down Teams. We're now expanding, we get a lot of sessions on Copilot and everything. But the whole goal is just to bring people together. The original event that kind of spurred most of us on this is, there was this event back in 2013 called Link Conference, and for those of us who got to go, we all walked away from it just inspired of what that community was. It was originally designed for about 600 people to show up. They ended up selling 900 and something tickets, and then they figured out that there were probably about 1,100 people there, with bad sharing and things like that. If you're at Comms vNext, find Jamie Stark and ask him some questions about that. He was the one who helped on that for Link Conference, and he has great stories about that. But that was really that impetus of just community. A large portion of us ended up, our careers changed at that point. Our lives changed based on the meetings that we had there. And everything like that. So it was really kind of neat to see. So, Josh, do you have any thoughts that you wanted to add into that?
I mean, so the emotional part of it, right? For me, I would say it really is, when you think back to the inception of the event and talking about Link Conference, we had just come off of a Microsoft Ignite, and I had to sit there as the one guy that had not been to Link Conference and hear about how great the days of Link Conference were. And at that moment, I'm thinking, I swear, if I have to hear Pat Richard talk about maybe field running on the beach anymore for Link Conference. And so it was just a moment of everything everyone described about that conference. As much as we liked Ignite, it was big, it was broad, you get lost in a sea of content that's somewhat relevant to you, but largely a lot of it's not. Everything sounded really cool about that. So in my mind, I kind of, after a couple conferences like that, I'm like, what could we do? What could we do to bring that magic back from the community angle? Because that's just not the direction Microsoft went, a new direction, right? And so it sparked conversations with Jonathan McKinney and Adam and Pat, until we were like, hey, let's do this thing. Let's bring it to life and make it happen. So that, to me, is where the value and the emotion, the original investment went into. I was trying to catch up to everybody else who was involved with that conference and see what it was about, but kind of create it to be our own. And I like to think, as I've talked to people at the event over the last several years, like to think, based on what I've heard from them, that we're kind of on track there. A lot of people have echoed that though smaller, you get that feel of so focused, of content, of networking opportunities, of what you're there to do, that it is a more intimate environment, but one that is super focused in on what you're there for. You're going to have a hard time choosing your sessions because all the sessions are relevant to you practically. You're going to always be able to turn around and have someone to network with and meet that it is relevant in your space, because they're not someone whose world consists only of SharePoint or someone that's purely in Azure. That's kind of what we've tried to shape it up to be. So, and I think we've arrived there. But
absolutely.
Well, I think you guys, you certainly, I think, hit it with Comms vNext, because I'll give you, Brandon, I'll start off the story. You can kind of finish up. Before I do that, though, is that FOMO shirt a shirt from Comms vNext?
It is indeed. This was one of our special edition shirts that we did a few years back, just to kind of say, if you're not here, this is. And so we actually, since they were special, they weren't the regular shirt that we give out. We were selling these at the time. Quite a bit of them sold. It was pretty cool. And
I might still have a couple sitting in the closet that we can pull back out for this year that we didn't actually get sold. So, but it was a very limited run at the time. But I think we have 4, maybe 5 left still.
I think you need a medium You need to have you need to put a medium aside for me. All right, get a medium aside for me.
I'll look and see.
I remember the marketing. Like I remember that was there was a lot of FOMO sort of marketing going on LinkedIn, right? Like that was pretty cool. So that's what that kind of triggered it. So our story is very much of community, right? Like you guys put this show on, and for those out there listening, it's it's technical people, it's product people, it's marketing people, but it's all around Teams Phone, right? And collaboration, communication. It's all about understanding sort of that aspect of Microsoft Teams, right? And it's very focused. If that's your role in an organization, it's very focused on. There's some really highly technical people there that I remember Tracy Herr getting up from Microsoft, having a technical discussion about devices and talk about getting in the weeds. I walked into that show or that session, and I was with her for about 3 minutes. And then I was like, and this is just not my session. Let me find the next guy session, right? But our first year was 3 years ago. I think this is coming up on our third year, and we put on a dinner, I think, for some Microsoft MVPs first and second year. So we're doing our third annual again this year, but we call it the MVP Celebrity Dinner. But we get there and we didn't know a soul, didn't know what the show was about, didn't know, we were fairly new into the Teams ecosystem providing Operator Connect services. And Adam and Josh both took Brandon and I essentially under your wings, guys. Like you took us under your wings and you're like, here's what to expect. Here's what you're going to see. Go just meet people. Everybody's really nice here. And man, everybody was just nice. And there was no like holding anything back. Like if you wanted to know something, people were there to share. And it wasn't just like the vendors sharing their stuff. It was like the guys in the field and gals that are supporting and building Microsoft Teams phone solutions and stuff. They're going, oh, hey, you want to learn how to do this? Here's how I did this. Here's how I tackled this. Oh, you want to know what I have? And I'm like this vendor going, what can I sell? And they're like, well, we've got this and this and this and that. We've got this. And it's everybody's just so open and sharing. And I think being at that show, it just invites sharing, making everyone better, not just people that are your peers, but people that are vendors also. It's helping them become better because the buyers are sharing with them, hey, here's what I needed. This is why I have these guys as an example. Mm-hmm. And so it was fantastic. Brandon and I left there going, man, I think we made friends, and I think we made like lifelong colleagues, and I think we learned a ton, and we're just like, we really dig this. Anyway, that was pretty cool. So Brandon, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spent a lot of time thinking hindsight, but as you guys have been talking, it stirred like maybe I'm going to take a little different perspective on this. One, from our perspective of trying to break into the Microsoft ecosystem, and I'm going to parallel that with, Rick and I, we've been approached recently, like this year, of people who they went and experienced Comms vNext for the first time. They see our podcast, and this isn't me like puffing our chest, but they're like, hey, how do we kind of go build our brand, our self brand in this community? And when I think about what Microsoft is, and we all know this, it's where do I start with Microsoft? It's the ecosystem. It's I've got 1,000,001 places in Microsoft documentation to go look for things, and I'm trying to understand, how do I do this? How do I do that? And who do I talk to if I need help? And I think the eye-opening thing now, 3 years looking back, is Comms vNext is like that aha moment, right? You walk in and it's not just welcoming and friendly. It's all of those things, like what Rick said, but it's hey, let me, tell me about what you're looking for, and let me guide you to the person you need to talk to. And I think that's the most like profound thing to me, is Microsoft is not as daunting as you think it is once you kind of get brought into the fold, if you will.
Right.
And then getting to see other people doing like what Rick and I were doing 3 years ago. How do we establish ourselves in the community and start moving with the community? So it's, it's huge kudos to things like Comms vNext for that.
Well, that's what you guys provide. I mean, you guys provide the platform for people to go, to go grow professionally, right? That's really what it is. It's a platform to grow professionally. And so we were super thrilled and super excited to to just not knowing anything. We threw this little dinner. We called it the Celebrity Night Dinner, right? And we had, flash it. We had the paparazzi there and some limos and
It was
stuff like
entertaining.
that. It
That
was
was for
super.
sure.
It was super
It was
entertaining.
fun.
And then we did it again, and it was like it got even bigger, And so we're like, I think we're on the third annual. Like Brandon, I was like, Brandon, this is the third annual. We're gonna have to say it's a third annual MVP Celebrity Night Dinner, right? So it's kind of like it's a fun time. So we appreciate you guys putting this on because it's super helpful for everyone that's involved.
So something I want to chime in on though really quickly, because Brandon, you said something and I was like, people need to know this because it's easy, especially as you go, and Josh, maybe this is where you're going to head on this, is it's easy because you said, hey, where do you start with Microsoft? And it's easy to pick a silo from Microsoft and try to embrace it and to go down that rabbit hole. And you may be all in on the technology like Josh and I were from back in the day with, I remember, I always tell people this story of, I remember when OCS came out and every time they would release a new CHM file, and I just dated myself something fierce for the help file because that was the only manual you had, right? And it was all in 4 megabytes or something like that. And you would read through it. So you could get really excited with that. But when you show up to a show like Comms vNext, it's really easy, especially like an Ignite or someplace like that, to be intimidated by all the people that are there. And one of the things that I think I've been really proud about for Comms vNext is as we go through and pick speakers and everything like that for the event, we try to prioritize new voices. So it's, yes, you're getting some of the stalwarts, some of the people who have been around and have a lot of wisdom and a lot of advice on how to run these things, but you're also getting new people, and we really do look for new voices all the time. And so I would just encourage, if you're somebody who's listening to this today and are like, well, should I go? Should I not? Whatever, come be a part of the community. Come hear what others have to say, contribute your voice, because really that's the way this works, is if you're not contributing your voice, it's just a few people speaking off into the ether, and that's not really what our goal was with this.
How many people typically get there? Sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to stop you there.
I mean, it's grown, right? It's grown over the last few years incrementally. So last year we a little over 300, I believe, right, Adam, is our numbers,
Yep.
And
yep,
we're anticipating closer to 4 this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So our goal is to hit 400. My goal actually is to get the hotel to tell us to stop bringing people. That if that happens, that's a great sign. But 400 is our target for this year.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
I wanted to dive into the kind of what you had said about getting started in the space, Brandon, and finding your way and maybe cutting through some of the noise there. I think back to a good friend at this stage who has got his start in the industry around, kind of through Comms vNext, and is now helping every year in a major way. Made several road trips hauling gear across the country with Pat, and has been putting on the podcasts booth that exists at the show. But Eric Marcy was one who was fresh and new to the UC scene. Probably the youngest person ever to be fresh and new in the UC scene. He got to come to Comms vNext one year, and I think there was moments of somewhat intimidation, like you had alluded to, Adam, where it was like, okay, these are people that he's known, he started following, he's connected with, and then he shows up, and there's a lot of people there that he might not otherwise have met at a large conference or at a bigger space, but all the people that you may want to connect with and get to know are present. And it's a moment where you're actually able to be pointed in the right direction, right? You're kind of cutting through the noise of a larger event to be able to, I'm new, I'm finding my way, I'm looking for tips in this space. Aside from being a new person, I can lean on some veterans in this space that I otherwise wouldn't have, run into, and they'll really give me guidance and help there. And Eric is just like one of those kind of fond, as I think back to that point about what Comms vNext is, it's fun to look at where he started with it and how involved he's gotten and where he's at in the space now. He's since become a Microsoft MVP and is quite active in there, right? So it is a place where if you're kind of looking for how do I get deeper into it, how do I cut through a lot of the noise, it's a great environment to do that in.
And I'm gonna I'm going to make a little lighthearted comment, and we'll chuckle because we were in the green room, or the stage before we came live on the show. Adam was saying, "Hey, I might offend you because you're from Colorado, so I'm going to make some assumptions about you." And it was this comment about, "Hey, we here in Colorado, we're just kind of these jeans and t-shirt kind of guys. Like, there's no frills." And when I think about what Comms vNext is and the whole intimidation, like, where do I start? We all show up, and it's this community. There's none of this perception of I'm here to try to outperform or out impress or toot my own horn. It's everyone's walking around in that jeans and t-shirt mentality of, hey, we're all here together. We're all at the same level, and we all respect each other for that. Yeah. So that's the thing I appreciate.
Guys, I think I'm just going to take that as a low key, don't bring my Italian vest is what that is. I
think you should.
I wasn't going to say it. I mean, I was just going to let that dog lie.
That was like a dig. Rick, you don't need to bring the Italian vest, man. It's fine.
Our listeners are like, what Italian vest?
See, now you're almost obligated to bring it.
Exactly. Exactly. We got to see it now.
Oh, God, that's hilarious. For everybody that doesn't know, Brandon made fun of me for wearing this Italian vest. He said it looks like his grandpa's vest. And I'm like, it's like a dressy vest. It's got the little pocket thing for a pocket square and stuff like that. It's like a suit jacket with no sleeves. Like, who doesn't want to wear a blazer with no sleeves? Like, it's like I should wear it to the gym sort of thing, right?
I was gonna say, all I saw in my head was The Rock right there, man. So
in all seriousness, guys, no, we totally appreciate the show. Eric Marcy, by the way, what a smart individual. I did the unfortunate thing and asked him his age one time, and it blew my mind. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, wow, such a young man. And he does a brilliant job with the podcast during the show, and just is a brilliant guy through and through. And so it's fun to see how he has sort of climbed the ranks, if you will, as MVP and all that good stuff. And again, Comms vNext is part of that, part of his growth path.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple other things, just because I think at some point here, Rick, you wanted to chat about some of the sessions too.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'm really proud about the event, because it's not Josh or myself or Jonathan, or it truly is the community that helps drive this. And we've seen some folks step in, whether it's our volunteers, and if you're at the event, please thank a volunteer, because we couldn't get this done without them. But some of the other things that I've seen that I've just been really thrilled to see, and it started a few years ago, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, it literally started with somebody came up to us and said, hey, you should do this. And we said, well, why don't we do it today? And we literally did a women in teams lunch. Like, we literally just repurposed a room at the time. And it wasn't because we had this grand idea. Somebody came to us with it. All we did was help them provide that space so that they could go and do it. Yeah. And we ended up with like 80 people in this tiny little room, packed room. And it was so awesome to see folks like Sharon Weaver and Lori Popmeyer and folks like that who stepped up. And I forget all of the amazing women who have stepped into that role to be there. So all I got to say is it's amazing to watch what the community really can bring together with this. And I know at least I've heard rumblings that there's talks of how that can continue with the women in teams group, and they're working on some things for this year. So not to spoil anything, but just be aware, it's coming back in some fashion. Pat's gonna hear this secondhand and go, what? And think I just obligated him to something, but I may or may not have. But anyways, but yeah, I think it's just neat to see how the community drives it, and it's not us. So yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so question, guys.
Yeah.
What are some sessions that people can look forward to? What's hot? What's new? What's going on in the Teams ecosystem that's really kind of catching on or important to organizations? What they should be looking for? What they don't know yet that's important, but we see the relevance in it, let's just say, because you're in it all day, every day. What are some things that we're going to see out there?
I mean, we started to trickle out. The agenda's live, by the way. So if you go out to commsvnext.com, you can navigate pretty easily and find find the sessions that are out there now. So that's a great way to explore and see what you might be interested in. People have started sharing some. We've started sharing a few key sessions as well. We're excited that Jamie Stark, as Adam mentioned, is coming back this year to present. But you're going to get anything from some really deep technical how-to sessions on managing teams, administration, all that good stuff, to some of the newer stuff that we've started to see come to the show, which is increasingly relevant, and stuff around AI, Copilot. There's more and more of those things in there, learning how to be a prompt master, that kind of stuff when it comes to the team's world. So I'm not calling out any specific sessions here at the moment. And Adam, if you have a couple that bubble to mind, great. But I just want to give a flavor for, this is the kind of stuff you could expect. We stay fairly focused, but it's kind of hard to ignore the fact that the team's world has melted, as Microsoft has intended, into several other areas, and there's some bleed over, right? So we're getting relevant things that are a little beyond purist team sessions that involve other parts of the Microsoft ecosystem that are coming into play. It's exciting to see, and that brings other speakers into the mix as well. Some that are well known in that space, some that are new. We really like to put a focus on making sure we're bringing new people in each year. Yeah,
I would say the places, the discussion on places as well. And then one that I always think is fun, because again, if you're coming from I liked how you said the purist, but Teams isn't pure. Let's just be honest. We've got folks from all over, whether it's from collab to communications. But when you start talking about the communication space and the phone space, some of the sessions where it's like, I didn't know Teams can do that. I love those sessions. We've had lots of knowledge dropped on those where people are like, oh, I had no idea that Teams could do, paging. Teams could do X, Y, or Z with things like that. And it's stuff that's not really well broadcast all the time. So sometimes you just got to go and be in one of those sessions. But yeah, I think how Teams and Copilot are merging, or I shouldn't say merging, uniting to bring AI to communications from that standpoint is always amazing.
And yeah, we've got a couple. Speaking of the sponsor of this show, right? There's a couple folks from your team as well that are going to be there speaking, that have been there before speaking. You've got Satish, who's coming back. Always good to see him, and Mark Vale, who is he's just, I like talking about Mark. Mark and I have been friends for a long time prior to becoming MVPs, and he kind of got Commsverse started across the pond, a sister event to us. And so we're always comparing notes and learning from each other. And a lot of it, I think, is us learning from Mark. But he just is taking.
He just doesn't sleep. He doesn't sleep. He gets more done than the four of us combined, because he just doesn't sleep. Period.
Yeah. No.
He's such a machine, that guy. It's such a privilege to have him here on the Momentum team. Him and Satish, we're just thrilled with both of them. And Brandon gets the opportunity to work with Mark more than I do these days on the technical side, and it's just like I throw things over the fence too. I'm like, Brandon, can I have him do this? Can I have him try this? And he'll be like, well, I've got him doing this. And then I'll just go to Mark. Mark, hey, do you got time to check this out, Mark? Mark's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll get to it. And then, next thing you know, it's like next day comes around, he's like, boom, here you go. And you're just like, dang, that's awesome.
Well, now I'm going to make fun of Rick a little bit. This is for your entertainment, Josh and Adam. So the other day, I think was it last Friday, maybe? I was talking to Mark Vale, because Mark and I are going to get on stage, and back to Adam, your comment about you like showing how things work. Mm-hmm. We have I'll call it a crash cart of equipment that we're going to set up. That there's probably $10,000 worth of equipment we're going to set up, and we got a really cool demo that we're going to do. I'm leaning mostly on Vale, because the guy is just wicked smart. And things like we're showing the industry something that the industry hasn't seen yet. We're actually partnering and sponsoring a company to certify a device in Teams that brings fully state compliant alarm lines into Teams. So we're going to be showing stuff like that. But I had to call Rick and say, by the way, Rick, Momentum is a sponsor, but you do know that Mark and I, we're doing our own session. This is not Momentum. Like, we're not talking about Momentum. You still need to figure out what you're doing for Momentum.
I thought I was off the hook. So normally, you know, I'll do speaking at some other events, you know, and so I thought I was off the hook. I'm like, oh, look, Brandon and Mark got something, and then Satish has got like a, you know, something going on too. I'm like, we've got everybody speaking. It's fantastic. And then he's like, yeah, no, your session is still you've got to go figure out your session. I'm like, oh. Is there a 50 level? I know there's a 100 level, 200 level, 300 level. I need like a 50 level.
I think you can rise to the occasion, Rick. I believe in you. I believe that you can rise to a 100.
This is a good topic, though. This story is a good call out, I think, in terms of how we like to do sessions at Comms vNext, and I think it's important to the attendee, right? Because we do have some sessions from our key platinum sponsors that are going to be there as well. They were warmly received last year. Good content, but when it's not a sponsored session, we try very hard to make sure that you know our speakers are aware this isn't a moment for a marketing presentation, right? Or a sales. This is like you're getting into the technology, and that is always been appreciated from the very beginning, that it is a conference focused on digging into the technology, digging into the core of what we're all there, what's common to us all. No one feels like they're being marketed to when you attend a session too heavily, with the exception of the sponsored sessions, right? And they're meant for that. You know, you're going in to learn about an offering or a solution from this company, and it's relevant for you.
Yeah.
Momentum. That's my
Well, it's possible, but I will say this. I think all of the sponsors treat their sessions largely the same way that we ask our volunteer speakers to treat it, which is you're there to improve upon the people who are attending your session. So whether that's basic education of, hey, this is what this is, here's how it works, etc., all the way into, hey, let's dive deep into the technical on this. So you get that breadth of 100 to 400. So if you're a business decision maker, so say you're a director of IT, a CIO, or somebody like that, and you're coming and maybe you're just trying to understand what those core concepts are, and that education part, or maybe the business part of it, of like, does this even make financial sense for me to be looking at this? We have that. And then we have the really technical for the folks who are like, I'm neck deep in this, and sometimes it feels like I'm, you know, eyes deep into it, and maybe I get a breath of fresh air every now and again. You know, Rick, you mentioned Tracy. She blows my mind every time, because she like you said, it's like you have about 30 seconds into her talk, and then you're at the 400 level very, very quickly. And she's incredible. And so from that standpoint, you get the whole range. You get, you know, Seth is doing a Ask Me Anything session, and those are always fun, because some of the questions that come out of there are incredible. But then you have the folks from Microsoft who will be there speaking. You have folks from the vendors, and like I said, Rick, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to commit you to things here.
You are the
which Brandon loves
of the day.
I was going to say, well, Brandon loves it when he's got a partner in crime on holding Rick to something. But like I said, I think you can really add value to the people who come to your session, because you can find a way to communicate what do they need to know, like what's going to make their business better, and things like that. And it doesn't have to be 400 level. There's a lot of, I've always stated for a long time, I think the most popular sessions sit somewhere right between 150 and 250. So some of those 200 level sessions, some of those 100 level sessions that kind of edge into the technical, because so many of us, there's so much out there. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and I love those sessions because I learn something new every time. So,
thanks, guys.
And
I appreciate
if you're doing the session with the sweater too, that would be
oh, totally. Well, then we're all there
with the vest and the guitar. The vest and the guitar.
If you just come in, and your session could be serenade teams.
Thank you, Brandon. I'll tell you what's interesting, guys, and this is where I have been giving it a bit of thought, just to kind of throw something out there. And this is interesting to me. I'm curious if it's interesting to anybody else. I am preaching like there is no tomorrow, that every organization, and it doesn't matter what size of organization you are, needs to be on. When I say collaboration platform, obviously I mean Teams, right? And the reason is because you need to capture your end users' information, or not your end. You need to capture your communication with your customers, right? Because you can look at your business and go, I can see all the emails, I can see all this, I can see all that, and then here though, I don't know what's going on the phone, right? So when you're on Teams phone, and you can capture that, then you can do a couple of different things that are interesting. You can automate some of your process. Right? You can build functionality, you can build process around something you weren't going to build process around. And guess what? There's tools within Teams to go build process like Power Automate and things like that, right? So and you can get into Copilot Studios and all sorts of cool things. And so I'm sort of really neck deep into the Teams or into the Copilot Studio stuff right now, and AI in general, and capturing what you need to capture on voice has been pretty interesting to do, because then I can see how businesses can really benefit for that. So that's, from my perspective, that's a CIO sort of, VP of IT business kind of gals discussion. And so that's kind of what I'm kind of zeroing in on, because I've now seen the benefits of automation in organizations, and I'm like, oh, this is exciting to tell people about. Like, you should, I don't care if you're like a 5-user company, you should be on Microsoft Teams to capture the communication so that you can automate something.
No, that's relevant, and I think anytime that you're able to go beyond the marketing speak of Copilot and AI related topics and really get to the nitty gritty of how you use this stuff for real in real life alongside a tool, then I think that's a win right there for a lot of people. So then I think that's kind of how we landed on some of the sessions we landed on too, right? When it comes to Copilot, just stuff that is real world. This is how you can use this, for real, not just what is Copilot. It's something that has some real meat to it for real life application.
And that's what it comes down to. It's like, how do you apply something, right? Because I am that sort of, like, I'm a technology enthusiast, but it's not my job to be the enthusiast. It's my job to go figure out what's the business sort of, benefit for something like this, right? So because I need to convey that from a product and marketing perspective. And so being able to kind of go, here are the real world things we've seen, not just, for the sake of tech, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm going to ask this is a spitball question around sessions, and over the course of 7 years, obviously you guys, you kind of open call for people to volunteer to come in and do sessions, and people apply for it, kind of fill out the information of what they want the session to be. Has there been any time over the last 7 shows, 8 years, where you have to make a hard decision on, oh man, I've got all these great shows, but I only have this many spots? And how do you handle that?
Every year?
Yeah, I was going to say it every time. There's always going to be, there's always more sessions that come in than what we know what to do with typically. So, and a lot of them are just really good, and sometimes it's like you may want to, sometimes it's just people that you thought would be, oh, this person is definitely going to be speaking here, but you find out, hey, when I've stacked it all up, that person might not be they might not be having a session this year because you're just up against a rock and a hard place. And it's not the way we handle it is we actually go through a voting process in the background with the 4 of us, the 4 main organizers of the event. After we make Pat do all the hard work of collecting all the information and having it in one place for us, then we all go in and cast votes individually. And so we just say, okay, which sessions all got 2 to 3 votes at least, if not 4. And that's kind of, the sausage making of how we land at that point. But it's not always that straightforward. Sometimes we have to go back and forth and re-talk a couple different sessions. And then the real hard part comes where we have to schedule them. And it's not just like, okay, now we've decided who's speaking and what's being put out there. But now you're going to have to line up this session directly competing with this session. And that might not be the right time to put them. Maybe we should move them on the schedule, and that makes it even more complicated. Just because there's a couple of them out there that are going to draw big crowds, and you got to be careful about that, right? You don't want to take too much from the other sessions.
We've learned that lesson. In the past, where we had a VP from Microsoft show up and literally suck away all of the audience from the other sessions.
Everyone.
But this year, everyone, I mean, when you promise to give away a lot of stuff, it happens. But this year we had 60 total speaking slots that we filled, and I think we had over 100 sessions submitted. So Brandon, you asked that question, and it's not easy. Like, and the way, Josh, you did a great job of describing it, and just to kind of, the way we do it is we're really looking at the descriptions. We're looking at the topics, and we're saying, we're not looking at who it is. It's literally, what's the topic? And so you might end up with like 2 or 3 really good sessions on the same thing, and then you have to kind of prioritize within that. So it's like, there's only so many people who can go and talk about voice routing in Teams before you're like, I don't need 5 of those sessions. I need 1, maybe 2 kind of thing. And so that becomes a tougher spot of where that is. Right now, the hotness is Copilot and prompt engineering. We probably had 10 or 12 sessions that were basically prompt engineering sessions, and you have to read through it, and it literally takes, it's not a short time. I mean, I don't think any of us spend just a couple of minutes. It's literally hours of like looking at it combined to make those calls. So it's definitely tough, but I'm really proud of the lineup this year. I will say this, stay tuned. Can't quite tell you who the keynote is yet, but we've got a fabulous keynote. So we'll just tease that out a little bit, and you'll see that come out here in the next week or so. But yeah, I'm super excited about that. So.
Yeah, and I asked that question because I think for our listeners, I think it's important for them to realize like there is a lot of thought that is put into what these sessions are, what the content is, and how you line that all up so that a person can make the most of how they pick what sessions they want to go to throughout the course of the 2 days. And I've been there 2 years and going on 3, and every year I'm torn every time. I'm like, man, there's 3 rooms. And sometimes I'll bounce.
There's 5 this year. There's 5 rooms this year. So here's the other good news. So for people who get the FOMO, it takes us a while because we're all volunteer driven. But most of the sessions are recorded. Not all of them, but most of the sessions are recorded, and we do get them out onto the Comms vNext YouTube channel after the event. Usually about 3 months after, and we'd love to get them out faster. It's just, it takes that much time to process them and everything like that. And we are grateful to the volunteers who help us get those post-processed and everything. It's not a short period of time. But yeah, so when you do have those, Brandon, you just have to kind of make a note and say, I'm going to track on the Comms vNext YouTube so that I can go and catch that. Because while yes, technology changes really, really fast, there's some great content from years past that's out there that are still applicable today. So don't think about it as the normal, like it only exists for 30 seconds in the ether and then it's gone, like something on Twitter or something.
And I'll let you guys in on just a little bit of the almost kind of a dirty little trick when it comes to the way we schedule things as well. We tend to look at the list and say, which of these do we think are going to be like the real, I'm going to have serious FOMO if I don't go to that session. It's going to draw a lot of people. And we put those at the very end of the last day so that you hang out with us for the full 2 days.
Besides the fact that a lot of times we put the really good snacks on the end of day 2 as well, the churros. The churros, so
reliably, which is
guys, you guys got this down. Like you guys got this down. Are the free headshots at the end too? The free headshots are at the very end as well, right? So it's like,
I don't know. We'll see if we get the LinkedIn photographer back yet. We haven't had anybody pick up that sponsorship yet, but if somebody's listening and wants to do that, we would appreciate that. We'd love to bring her back. She did a phenomenal job. So it
was actually pretty heavily utilized too.
It was
absolutely. But and on the sponsorship topic there, I think that's another area where it's good to call out. When you walk the expo floor at any event, right? You're having to my comment earlier, filter out the noise of all the stuff that's not really relevant to you that you don't really need to know about. I think that's kind of one of the things that is another part of the magic to Comms vNext is when you're there and you're ready to go ahead and walk the expo floor and see what's there, there are very few things, if any, that's not going to be relevant to what you're doing in some kind of way. And so it's just a great way to go around, and if you're able to talk to every single vendor, because you may be surprised at how they're connected to you, and you didn't realize, oh, this is actually relevant to the solutions we're engineering or working on or selling ourselves. It's all so laser focused that there's not noise to cut through. It's just everything around you is relevance that you can soak in during the event.
Totally.
Love it. All right, guys, listen, we hit the top of this hour here where we're gonna wrap this thing up. But before we do, I'd love for each of you guys, I'd love to understand what your elevator pitch is for Comms vNext. Just what does that look like? If you're talking to the crowd out there, not to Brandon and Rick, how do you invite somebody to the show?
If it's me, I usually get on camera with a chicken or something and try to do clickbait. But I mean, the elevator pitch, the really quick and dirty of it is, if you're looking for something that is laser focused in on the UC space, the collaboration space, from a networking perspective to a session perspective, and then beyond that to the vendors, like I just mentioned, you're going to hit all those in exactly the way you want. It's all going to be relevant. It's going to be the place you want to be. And if you're trying to get deeper immersed into this industry, this is where you're going to make those connections. This is where you're going to have that jumping point off into the industry. The other big thing about it is you will not find, and I challenge Mark Vail on this, you will not find better conference food at any other conference.
That's true.
vNext. It is always raved about. We always get high marks. So if for nothing else, come and eat great food for 2 days with really cool people.
And Mark Vail's here. Let's bring him on. Let's debate. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
That would have been awesome.
There was a pretty cool iron stamped bun on the burger last Commsverse. Yeah. It was like a high bar there. If you got embroidered or what would you call it? Embossed.
It's all about the
team's
taste,
logo.
Rick, okay, it's all about the taste.
I was gonna say let me tell you, the churros will blow you away for sure, and along with everything else. So no, it's Josh. I think you hit the nail on the head. If you're involved in the unified communications industry, specifically around Teams and Microsoft, for sure you should be there, whether it's from a meeting rooms, whether it's from a phone system, from a voice over IP to a Copilot integration, meeting rooms, all of it. It's all there. But I go look at the agenda, because there's some other technologies that are sneaking in. Why? Because we're a community-based event, and we do welcome all. And so go check it out. Now I'm going to just use that as the tease to make you go look and see what I'm talking about. But there's some cool stuff that's happening, and some great people that'll be there.
And we'll get the link down below. At my elevator pitch, it's ironic that I get asked this, Rick, because I was just at lunch with a quite big brand. I think anyone would know this brand. I won't say it on air. I actually gave him the link to watch the show, so maybe he's watching. But there, I think a lot of times for me, I tend to pitch this as assuming you're already in the Microsoft ecosystem, you're already in Teams. And today I had the opportunity to sit and have lunch with a guy who, this corporation is on some of the oldest legacy stuff you've ever could remember from an on-prem phone system. And their challenge today is, what phone system do we go to? And there's 3 options in front of them. And the pitch today wasn't saying you have to go to Teams. It was, hey, you should A, come check out our podcast. And then B, there's this show called Comms vNext. And let me tell you what that does for you. It puts you in a room with all of the who's who in the industry, and not just like the big name who's who. It could be another brand in the industry. When I say industry, I mean they could be in any industry, but they're already in Teams. And now you're rubbing shoulders with them, asking them, hey, where did you come from? How did you get to Teams? And for all you know, that spark is all it takes to I'll say convert. Sounds a little culty right there, but
it kind of did take
a little too far. I was gonna say now there goes the brand.
No, but I think it's I think people just, you got to come see it to believe it. It's eye opening.
There we go. Mine's just, I'm going to sing the team song. That's it.
All right, guys. Good.
Come on, guys.
Here's the outro.
And we're out. How about we get
That's a wrap, everyone.
here, because we gotta get that guitar out of here.
That's a wrap, everybody. We'll catch you later.
I can't tell if you're being serious.
I'm being
No,
serious. No,
yeah.
I'm totally being
Happy
serious.
Friday, everybody.
Thanks for joining.
That was
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you at Comes Be Next. All right.